Slide 1, title, approximate 1.5 minutes. Welcome, everyone. Today we undertake a scholarly and devotional exploration of one of the most profound themes in the Urantia Book, worship. Worship is not merely a religious ritual or a cultural ceremony. According to the Urantia Book, it is the highest privilege and first duty of all intelligent creatures, the supreme act by which the finite soul consciously reaches toward the infinite Father. Over the course of these 20 slides, we will trace the cosmic anatomy of worship, its origins in evolutionary impulse, its nature as distinguished from prayer, its cosmic mechanics, and its ultimate destiny on the shores of paradise itself. Please open your hearts and minds as we journey through these revelatory teachings. Each slide will draw directly from the text, and you are encouraged to follow along with the citations provided. Let us begin. Slide 2, What is worship? Approximate 2 minutes. Let us begin with the most fundamental question: what is worship? The Urantia Book answers with striking clarity. In Paper 27, Section 7, Paragraph 1, we read, "Worship is the highest privilege and the first duty of all created intelligences." Worship is the conscious and joyous act of recognizing and acknowledging the truth and fact of the intimate and personal relationships of the creators with their creatures. Notice 3 key elements: it is a privilege, a gift granted to beings capable of knowing their Creator. It is a duty, not a burden, but a natural obligation of intelligent creature life. And it is conscious and joyous, not mechanical, not fearful, but a freely chosen, glad act of recognition. Then in Paper 5, Section 3, Paragraph 8, we are given a remarkable multidimensional description. True worship, in the last analysis, becomes an experience realized on 4 cosmic levels: the intellectual, the morontial, the spiritual, and the personal, the consciousness of mind, soul, and spirit, and their unification in personality. Worship, therefore, is not merely an emotion or a thought. It is a total person event, engaging every level of our cosmic being. Slide 3, Worship versus Prayer, approximate 2 minutes. One of the most analytically precise teachings of the Urantia Book is the distinction between worship and prayer. These are not interchangeable terms, they refer to qualitatively different transactions between the creature and the Creator. Paper 5, Section 3, Paragraph 3 states, "Worship asks nothing and expects nothing for the worshipper. We do not worship the Father because of anything we may derive from such veneration. We render such devotion and engage in such worship as a natural and spontaneous reaction to the recognition of the Father's matchless personality and because of His lovable nature and adorable attributes." Prayer has a self-interest element. It is appropriate, valuable, and encouraged, but it belongs to a different register. In Paper 143, we are given the celebrated contrast: prayer is self-reminding, sublime thinking; worship is self-forgetting, super-thinking. And again, prayer is spiritually sustaining, but worship is divinely creative. And in another magnificent metaphor from Paper 144, as prayer may be likened to recharging the spiritual batteries of the soul, so worship may be compared to the act of tuning in the soul to catch the universe broadcasts of the infinite spirit of the universal Father. These are not mere poetic flourishes. They describe real cosmic mechanisms, and understanding them transforms how we approach both practices. Slide 4, the 6th adjutant, the spirit of worship, approximate 2 minutes. The Urantia Book reveals that the capacity to worship is not accidentally acquired by evolving creatures, it is deliberately bestowed. The divine minister of each local universe creates 7 adjutant mind spirits, the 6th of which is specifically designated the spirit of worship. In Paper 36, Section 5, Paragraph 11, this adjutant is described as the first differential urge separating mind creatures into the 2 basic classes of mortal existence. And memorably, worship is the badge of spiritual ascension candidacy. This is an astonishing claim. The capacity to worship is the dividing line between animals and humans, between creatures that remain forever material and those who are candidates for eternal ascension. Paper 85, Section 7, Paragraph 1 then clarifies that even the most primitive expressions of worship, nature veneration, stone worship, fear of storms, were real responses to this adjutant's ministry. The form was crude, the impulse was genuine and divinely implanted. The spirit of worship does not manufacture a religion for us. It creates in us an irreducible upward longing, a spiritual gravity toward the Father. Everything else in religion is built upon this foundational endowment. Slide 5, Evolutionary Origins of Worship, approximate 1.5 minutes. Before worship reaches the heights we have been describing, it must begin somewhere. The Urantia Book provides a remarkably detailed account of religion's evolutionary origin. Paper 85, Section 0, Paragraph 2 notes, in the evolution of the human species, worship in its primitive manifestations appears long before the mind of man is capable of formulating the more complex concepts of life now and in the hereafter which deserve to be called religion. The progression described in Paper 85 moves through 6 great object categories: stones and hills, plants and trees, animals, the elements, heavenly bodies, and finally humans themselves. Each represents a broadening of the object of reverence. Each stage was imperfect, but each was an authentic response to the adjutant's ministry. Paper 85, Section 7, Paragraph 3 tells us the turning point, when the worship urge is admonished and directed by wisdom, meditative and experiential thinking, it then begins to develop into the phenomenon of real religion. When the seventh adjutant spirit, the spirit of wisdom, achieves effective ministration, then in worship man begins to turn away from nature and natural objects to the God of nature and to the eternal creator of all things natural. Evolution and revelation together lift worship from fear to love. Slide 6, True Worship, Paper 5, Section 3, approximate 2 minutes. Paper 5 of the Urantia Book contains what is perhaps the most theologically precise treatment of worship in the entire revelation. Section 3 is entitled True Worship, and it is worth reading with great care. Paper 5, Section 3, Paragraph 1 establishes the proper object. In the highest sense, we worship the universal Father and Him only. True, we can and do worship the Father as He is manifested in His Creator sons, but it is the Father, directly or indirectly, who is worshipped and adored. This is not a narrow exclusivism, it is a clarification of direction. All genuine worship, however expressed, ultimately flows toward the first source and center. Then Paper 5, Section 3, Paragraph 7 gives us an extraordinary functional description. Sincere worship connotes the mobilization of all the powers of the human personality under the dominance of the evolving soul and subject to the divine directionization of the associated thought adjuster. Worship is not passive. It is an active, total personality mobilization, every faculty consciously oriented toward the divine. And critically, the depth of our worship experience is tied directly to the developmental status of our evolving immortal soul. The soul is both the worshipper and the primary beneficiary. Slide 7, The Thought Adjuster and Worship, approximate 2 minutes. We cannot speak of worship in the Urantia Book without addressing the central role of the thought adjuster, the divine fragment of the universal Father that indwells every normal-minded human being. Paper 5, Section 3, Paragraph 8 gives us one of the most beautiful descriptions in all of revelatory literature. The worship experience consists in the sublime attempt of the betrothed adjuster to communicate to the Divine Father the inexpressible longings and the unutterable aspirations of the human soul, the conjoint creation of the God-seeking mortal mind and the God-revealing immortal adjuster. Think of what this means. When you worship, you are not alone. The divine fragment within you, a literal piece of the Father's own nature, is simultaneously reaching upward toward its source, carrying your longings with it. Paper 107, Section 0, Paragraph 5 confirms, it is the adjuster who creates within man that unquenchable yearning and incessant longing to be like God, to attain paradise, and there before the actual person of deity to worship the infinite source of the divine gift. And Paper 5, Section 3, Paragraph 2 reveals the cosmic mechanism. We further believe that such registry of the homage of an adjuster-indwelt creature is facilitated by the Father's Spirit presence. The adjusters undoubtedly also utilize direct prepersonal channels of communication with God. your worship reaches the Father. That is the promise of this revelation. Slide 8, Worship and the Growth of the Soul, approximate 1.5 minutes. One of the most practically significant teachings about worship concerns its relationship to the growth of the immortal soul. Paper 5, Section 3, Paragraph 7 makes a striking claim: the spiritual growth of the soul takes place wholly independently of the intellectual self-consciousness. This means that even when our conscious minds feel little in worship, even when it seems dry or rote, the soul may be growing in ways the intellect cannot detect. The criterion of worship's effectiveness is not emotional intensity but sincerity and orientation. Then Paper 117, Section 5, Paragraph 13 gives us the long-range cosmic perspective. Cosmically moral and divinely spiritual character represents the creature's capital accumulation of personal decisions which have been illuminated by sincere worship, glorified by intelligent love, and consummated in brotherly service. Character, the eternal capital we take with us through the ages, is built through this triad: worship, love, and service. Worship is not optional, it is the illuminating factor that gives our decisions eternal significance. Paper 110, Section 3, Paragraph 7 reinforces this: choosing to respond to divine leading and coordinating the qualities of divinity, through wisdom, worship, faith, and love, is the first of 7 ways the adjuster-human partnership advances. Slide 9, The Cosmic Function of Worship, approximate 2 minutes. Worship is not merely a private devotional exercise. It plays a defined role in the cosmic economy of the universes. Paper 5, Section 6, Paragraph 11 provides the architectural framework: as all gravity is circuited in the Isle of Paradise, as all mind is circuited in the conjoint actor and all spirit in the eternal Son, so is all personality circuited in the personal presence of the universal Father, and this circuit unerringly transmits the worship of all personalities to the original and eternal personality. Worship travels along a specific cosmic circuit, the personality circuit of the universal Father. It is not scattered into the void. It arrives. Paper 14, Section 4, Paragraph 13 then shows us what happens at the receiving end: as the worship of the faith sons of the evolutionary worlds ministers to the satisfaction of the universal Father's love, so the exalted adoration of the Havona creature satiates the perfect ideals of divine beauty and truth. And Paper 118, Section 8, Paragraph 6 warns of the civilizational danger when worship is neglected. When material achievement outruns the evolution of worship wisdom, civilization contains within itself the seeds of retrogression. Worship, in this sense, is not merely the creature's gift to the Father. It is the stabilizing force that anchors civilization to its spiritual moorings. Slide 10, What Worship is Not, approximate 1.5 minutes. The Urantia Book is remarkably direct in distinguishing authentic worship from its counterfeits. This matters enormously for both theological clarity and for the integrity of our inner life. Paper 4, Section 2, Paragraph 8 states simply and firmly: nature is not God. Nature is not an object of worship. This is not a condemnation of the natural world, which the book consistently celebrates as a revelation of divine artistry. But reverence for nature, however sublime, is not the same as worship of the Creator of nature. Paper 5, Section 5, Paragraph 4 extends this principle: the adoration of the abstract beautiful is not the worship of God, neither is exaltation of nature nor the reverence of unity the worship of God. Art, music, philosophy, and the appreciation of the beautiful are profoundly valuable, and can be pathways toward worship. But they are not worship in themselves. Paper 102, Section 7, Paragraph 3 makes the same point differently: you cannot pray to a chemical formula, supplicate a mathematical equation, worship a hypothesis, confide in a postulate, commune with a process, serve an abstraction, or hold loving fellowship with a law. Worship requires a personal God. It is an I-thou encounter, not an I-it appreciation. The personalness of the Father is what makes genuine worship possible. Slide 11, Jesus' Teachings on Worship, approximate 2 minutes. No exploration of worship in the Urantia Book would be complete without the master teacher himself. Jesus' teachings on worship are both theologically rich and practically transformative. Paper 149, Section 6, Paragraph 2 captures the heart of his mission. I have come to reveal the Father's love so that you will be attracted to the worship of the eternal by the drawing of a Son's affectionate recognition and reciprocation of the Father's profound and perfect love. In this single statement, Jesus reorients the entire history of worship, from fear to love, from compulsion to attraction, from slavery to sonship. His famous exchange with the woman of Samaria in Paper 143, Section 5, Paragraph 6 establishes the new dispensational standard. The hour will soon come, even now is, when all sincere worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for it is just such worshippers the Father seeks. And Paper 167, Section 6, Paragraphs 5 to 6 reveal his personal preferences. The Master by precept and example taught the value of worshipping the Creator in the midst of the natural surroundings of creation. He preferred to commune with the Heavenly Father amidst the trees and among the lowly creatures of the natural world. Jesus did not merely teach worship. He modeled it, night after night, on the hills and in the garden, in a communion that his apostles witnessed and marveled at. Slide 12, Worship and prayer together, approximate 2 minutes. Although worship and prayer are distinct, they exist in a dynamic, organic relationship. Prayer is, in fact, the natural pathway that leads to worship. Paper 144, Section 4, Paragraph 4 draws this trajectory beautifully. Prayer led Jesus up to the supercommunion of his soul with the supreme rulers of the universe of universes. Prayer will lead the mortals of earth up to the communion of true worship. Prayer begins in self-orientation, our needs, our fears, our gratitude. But as prayer matures and deepens, it gradually shifts from petition to adoration, from "give me" to "you are." That shift is the transition into worship. Paper 144, Section 4, Paragraph 7 then gives us a striking aphorism. Prayer is the breath of the spirit life in the midst of the material civilization of the races of mankind. Worship is salvation for the pleasure-seeking generations of mortals. And Paper 102, Section 4, Paragraph 5 makes a practical point for our contemporary world. Prayer is indeed a part of religious experience, but it has been wrongly emphasized by modern religions, much to the neglect of the more essential communion of worship. The reflective powers of the mind are deepened and broadened by worship. Prayer may enrich the life, but worship illuminates destiny. This is a gentle but significant correction. We have overemphasized petition and underpracticed adoration. Slide 13, Worship and Wisdom, approximate 1.5 minutes. The sixth adjutant, worship, and the seventh adjutant, wisdom, work in an inseparable partnership. Neither achieves its full purpose without the other. Paper 112, Section 2, Paragraph 13 gives us one of the most elegant formulas in the Urantia Book. In time, thinking leads to wisdom and wisdom leads to worship. In eternity, worship leads to wisdom, and wisdom eventuates in the finality of thought. In our mortal experience, we think we become wise. Wisdom opens us to worship. But as we ascend through the universes, the direction reverses. Worship itself becomes the teacher, guiding us to ever deeper wisdom. At the final levels, thinking becomes so saturated with worship that it reaches finality. Paper 85, Section 7, Paragraph 3 describes the critical transition. When the worship urge is admonished and directed by wisdom, meditative and experiential thinking, it then begins to develop into the phenomenon of real religion. Crude religion is worship without wisdom. Mere philosophy is wisdom without worship. The integration of both, the worshipful philosopher and the wise worshipper, is what the adjutant ministry is designed to produce. And Paper 118, Section 8, Paragraph 6 warns that cultural progress without worship wisdom will always eventually collapse. Slide 14, Practicing Worship in the Mortal Life, approximate 2 minutes. Given everything we have learned, how do we actually practice worship in the context of our mortal, material lives? Paper 143, Section 7, Paragraph 6 gives us a functional definition. worship is the technique of looking to the one for the inspiration of service to the many. Worship is the yardstick which measures the extent of the soul's detachment from the material universe and its simultaneous and secure attachment to the spiritual realities of all creation. This is enormously practical. Worship is not escape from the world, it is the source of inspiration for engaging it with greater love and effectiveness. We go up in worship in order to come back down in service. Paper 143, Section 7. Paragraphs 5 through 8 outline the contemplative method. Worship is intended to anticipate the better life ahead and then to reflect these new spiritual significances back onto the life which now is. And, worship is effortless attention, true and ideal soul rest, a form of restful spiritual exertion. And Paper 160, Section 3, Paragraph 1, the philosopher Rodin of Alexandria's reflection on Jesus' example, observes, meditation makes the contact of mind with spirit, relaxation determines the capacity for spiritual receptivity. And this interchange of strength for weakness, courage for fear, the will of God for the mind of self, constitutes worship. Worship is accessible to every sincere soul, here and now. Slide 15, Worship as the civilizational stabilizer, approximate 1.5 minutes. Worship is not a private piety with no public consequences. The Urantia Book makes clear that worship is the root system of civilization itself. Paper 92, Section 3, Paragraph 6 reveals that art itself was born from worship, sculpture originated in idol making, architecture in temple building, poetry in incantations, music in worship chants, drama in the acting for spirit guidance, and dancing in the seasonal worship festivals. Even the crude forms of primitive worship were civilization-ally generative. The upward reach of the creature toward the divine gave birth to the entire aesthetic dimension of human culture. Paper 118, Section 8, Paragraph 6 then issues a sobering warning: when culture advances overfast, when material achievement outruns the evolution of worship wisdom, civilization plants the seeds of its own regression. We live in precisely such a moment. The acceleration of technological and material civilization has not been matched by a corresponding deepening of spiritual wisdom and worship practice. Paper 99, Section 6, Paragraph 2 describes what healthy socialized worship achieves. It dramatizes the loyalties of religion, magnifies the lures of truth, beauty, and goodness, fosters the attractions of supreme values, enhances the service of unselfish fellowship. Worship is not a retreat from civilization. It is its regenerative source. Slide 16, Worship in the Urantia Ascent, approximate 2 minutes. What happens to worship after mortal death? The Urantia Book gives us an extraordinary portrait of how worship evolves throughout the long ascension to paradise. Paper 47, Section 7, Paragraph 5 marks a milestone on the fifth mansion world. Study is becoming voluntary, unselfish service natural, and worship spontaneous. Spontaneous worship, worship that arises naturally, without coaxing or effort, is a hallmark of the maturing ascending soul. On Urantia, worship often requires intention and effort. In the Urantia worlds, it becomes as natural as breathing. Paper 25, Section 7, Paragraph 2 confirms that this pattern continues throughout the entire ascent. Throughout the journey to paradise there will always be time for rest and spirit play, and in the career of light and life there is always time for worship and new achievement. Paper 27, Section 4, Paragraph 2 tells us that even on the circles of Havona, the spirit of the divine technique of worship is imparted, but its ultimate mastery awaits paradise itself. And Paper 38, Section 2, Paragraph 5 gives important perspective: even the great seraphim must redirect misplaced devotion. When a seer fell to worship an angel, that angel declared, "See that you do it not, I am a fellow servant with you and with your races, who are all enjoined to worship God." Only God is the proper object of worship. This principle deepens, not diminishes, throughout the ascent. Slide 17, Conductors of worship, approximate 2 minutes. Among the most remarkable revelations in the Urantia Book is the existence of a specialized order of paradise beings whose entire mission is to teach ascending mortals how to worship fully. Paper 27, Section 7, Paragraph 4. It is the task of the conductors of worship so to teach the ascendant creatures how to worship that they may be enabled to gain this satisfaction of self-expression and at the same time be able to give attention to the essential activities of the paradise regime. Without this specialized training, ascending mortals would require hundreds of years to give full and satisfactory expression to their accumulated emotions of gratitude, wonder, and love. Paper 27, Section 7, Paragraph 5 is breathtaking in its scope. All the arts of all the beings of the entire universe which are capable of intensifying and exalting the abilities of self-expression and the conveyance of appreciation, are employed to their highest capacity in the worship of the paradise deities. Worship is the highest joy of paradise existence, it is the refreshing play of paradise. And Paper 27, Section 7, Paragraph 8 establishes the gateway. After the attainment of the supreme satisfaction of the fullness of worship, you are qualified for admission to the core of the finality. Worship is not merely a practice we engage in on the way to our eternal destiny. It is the condition of our arrival. Slide 18, Worship as Transforming Experience, approximate 2 minutes. Perhaps the most personally significant teaching about worship is this: it changes us. Not merely our mood or our emotional state, it changes who we are. Paper 146, Section 2, Paragraph 17 records Jesus teaching directly. Worship, taught Jesus, makes one increasingly like the being who is worshipped. Worship is a transforming experience whereby the finite gradually approaches and ultimately attains the presence of the infinite. This is the doctrine of theosis expressed in Urantia Book language. Sustained, sincere worship gradually reshapes the personality in the image of its object. If we worship the all-loving Father, we gradually become more loving. If we worship goodness, beauty, and truth, we gradually embody them. Paper 196, Section 3, Paragraph 22 frames it in terms of cosmic realism. True religious worship is not a futile monologue of self-deception. Worship is a personal communion with that which is divinely real, with that which is the very source of reality. Man aspires by worship to be better and thereby eventually attains the best. Worship is not wish fulfillment or emotional escapism. It is contact with the deepest reality there is, the personal presence of the Universal Father, made accessible through the divine fragment that indwells us. Paper 100, Section 2, Paragraph 2 places worship at the summit of genuine spiritual development. It is the personality, dominated by the wholehearted worship of the perfection ideals of divinity, that constitutes the reality of religion as contrasted with mere theological beliefs. Slide 19, the seventh Jubilee and Finality, approximate 2 minutes. We are approaching the summit of our exploration. What is the culminating event of the entire mortal ascension career? It is a moment of worship. Paper 27, Section 7, Paragraph 8 describes the 7 Jubilees of the ascending mortal. The first marks the adjuster's arrival, the second, awakening in Urantia life, the third, fusion with the adjuster, the fourth, awakening in Havona, the fifth, finding the Universal Father, the sixth, the Paradise awakening. And the seventh? Entrance into the mortal core of the finality, which comes after the attainment of the supreme satisfaction of the fullness of worship. Paper 31, Section 3, Paragraph 6 then provides a humbling and exciting perspective. They have experienced the fullness of deity worship but not finality of experiential deity attainment. Even Fina leaders, having traversed the entire grand universe and stood in the literal presence of God on paradise, have not exhausted the depth of what can be known and worshipped. The adventure continues through unmapped outer space and across experiential ages yet undreamed. Paper 27, Section 7, Paragraph 7 describes one of the great cosmic events. When accumulated mortal gratitude overwhelms paradise itself, all of paradise becomes engulfed in worshipful expression, and the light of the deity abode fluctuates in divine satisfaction. What a triumph of technique! What a fruition of the eternal plan! This is the Father's joy, receiving back from his creature children the freely given love that he first planted within them. Slide 20, Conclusion and Invitation, approximate 2 minutes. We come now to the close of this presentation, though the topic itself has no close. Paper 16, Section 9, Paragraph 14 gives us perhaps the most comprehensive single statement on why we worship. We worship God, first, because He is, then, because He is in us, and last, because we are in Him. 3 reasons. 3 stages of understanding. The first is metaphysical, God simply is, and that is sufficient reason for adoration. The second is immanental, God has placed a fragment of Himself within each of us, the adjuster, and we cannot encounter that indwelling presence without being moved to worship. The third is mystical and participatory, we discover ourselves to be, in some genuine sense, within God, within the divine personality circuit, within the family of the Father, and this realization completes the circle of worship. We have traveled today from the first stirrings of the worship agitant in primitive humanity through the entire arc of the ascension career to the shores of paradise itself. We have seen that worship is not a cultural add-on or a religious obligation. It is the fundamental transaction of creature life before the Creator, the act by which we become most fully what we are. The invitation is simple: begin today. Worship is not reserved for Sunday mornings or formal ceremonies. It is available in every moment of sincere attention toward the Father, in nature, in silence, in service, in gratitude, in love. The spirit of it you can begin to appreciate even down here on Urantia, for the spirits of the gods even now indwell you, hover over you, and inspire you to true worship. Paper 27 minutes and 7.5 seconds. Thank you.